I had only been living in the city for a few weeks when it happened. I didn't know anyone yet. No friends, no family nearby. My apartment was small, the walls thin, the heater barely worked. Every night, the streets below buzzed with unfamiliar voices, distant sirens, the occasional echo of footsteps that lingered just a little too long. It wasn't a bad place, just lonely. Most nights, I worked late at a small cafe a few blocks from my apartment. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. The hours dragged, the customers were predictable. The young couples, the stressed-out students, the businessmen sipping coffee with their laptops glowing in front of them. But then there was him. He started coming in 2 weeks ago. Always alone. Always late at night. He never spoke much, just ordered the same thing every time. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. He sat at the same table, the one by the window, always facing the counter. Always watching. At first, I didn't think much of it. Some people are just like that. Quiet. Observant. But then I noticed the little things. Like how he never checked his phone. Never brought a book. How he never blinked when he looked at me. And how, the moment I started closing up, he would leave. Not before. Not after. Exactly as I flipped the closed sign. It was unsettling, but I told myself I was overthinking it. That was, until one night, when he left something behind. A small red envelope. It sat there, perfectly placed in the center of his table. I hesitated before picking it up, my pulse quickening. There was no name, no writing on the front, just a simple, folded card inside. I pulled it out with trembling fingers. A photo. And the moment I saw it, I felt sick. It was a picture of me, standing in my apartment window, taken from the street below. I felt my entire body lock up. This wasn't possible. I hadn't seen anyone outside last night. I had been alone. Slowly, I turned the photo over. There was a message on the back. See you soon. I barely slept that night. Every sound made my skin crawl. The creak of the pipes, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the wind against the windows. I kept checking the locks, peering through the blinds. Nothing. By morning, I had almost convinced myself that it was some kind of prank. Maybe one of the other employees messing with me. But then, I got a text. No caller ID. Just 2 words. Like the photo? My stomach dropped. I stared at the message, my hands shaking. I typed back, "Who is this?" No response. For the next few days, nothing happened. The man didn't come back to the cafe. No more texts. No more red envelopes. I started to think, maybe it was over. Then, on Valentine's night, I got home late. The apartment was cold, darker than usual. I flicked on the lights, dropped my bag on the counter, and I froze. There was something on my bed. A red envelope. I felt a sharp, electric jolt of panic. I didn't put that there. No one else had a key. I stepped forward, my legs unsteady, my breath shallow. The envelope was neatly placed on my pillow, waiting for me. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I didn't want to open it, but I had to. Slowly, I peeled it open. Another photo, but this time, it wasn't a picture of my window. It was a photo of me, taken from inside my apartment. I felt my breath hitch. The angle was low, taken from inside the closet. My eyes darted to the closet door. It was open, just an inch. A dark, narrow sliver of emptiness beyond it. I stood there, frozen, my entire body screaming at me to run. Then, a sound, from inside. Slow, shallow breathing. Someone was still in there, watching me, waiting. I grabbed my keys and ran. I don't know how long I stayed outside, my breath visible in the freezing night air, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I called the cops, told them everything. They searched the apartment. No one was there. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. No red envelope. It was just gone. The only thing that was left was my closet door, still open, just an inch. I packed a bag that night and left. I couldn't stay there. Not after that. I crashed at a friend's place for a while, stayed in cheap motels when I could, and for a few months, it seemed like it was over. Until last week, I came home to my new apartment halfway across the city. I unlocked the door, turned on the lights, and there, on the bed, was another red envelope. I didn't want to open it, but I did. And inside was a photo of me, asleep, taken from inside the closet. And on the back, a message. Miss me? I don't stay in one place for long anymore. I don't answer unknown numbers. I keep my doors locked. But every Valentine's Day, at exactly midnight, I hear it. A soft tap, tap, tap against the window. Even when I'm on the third floor. Even when I'm miles away. And I know one day, I'll look, and he'll be there, waiting. I was supposed to be alone on Valentine's Day. That was the whole point. I had just gotten out of a bad relationship. One of those slow burn disasters where you don't realize how bad it is until you're already drowning in it. I spent months trying to make it work, trying to ignore the late night arguments, the gaslighting, the constant feeling that something was wrong. So when I finally left, I swore I wouldn't look back. No dating, no flings, no Valentine's Day plans. Just me, a bottle of whiskey, and my couch. And that's exactly what I was doing, until the doorbell rang. I frowned, checking my phone. No messages, no missed calls. No one was supposed to be here. I hesitated, then got up, peeking through the peephole. The hallway was empty. A cold prickle ran down my spine. I unlocked the door, cracked it open, and there it was. A small red envelope, sitting perfectly in the center of my welcome mat. A fresh wave of unease rolled through me. I bent down, slowly picking it up. It was unmarked, no address, no name. I stepped back inside, locked the door, and opened it. Inside was a Valentine's Day card, bright red, covered in tiny hearts, and written in the middle, in neat, precise handwriting. Thinking of you. No signature, no explanation, just those 3 words. I felt my stomach twist. I had no idea who sent this, and worse, whoever it was, knew where I lived. I didn't sleep much that night. Every little noise made my skin crawl. The faint creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of the wind outside. By morning, I had convinced myself it was just a prank. Maybe one of my friends messing with me. Maybe even my ex. That's what I told myself, until the next night. When it happened again, I had just gotten home from work, tossed my keys on the counter, kicked off my shoes, and then, ding dong, my entire body locked up. I turned slowly, staring at the door. No, I rushed to the peephole. The hallway was empty. I yanked the door open, and there it was, another red envelope, waiting. I swallowed hard, grabbed it, and tore it open. Another Valentine's card, but this one was different. The front was the same, red, covered in hearts, but inside, in the same perfect handwriting, I can see you. My throat went dry. My hands shook. I turned my head slowly, scanning the apartment. I knew I was alone. I had been alone all night, hadn't I? I locked the door, closed the blinds, sat on the couch, staring at the card for what felt like hours. I didn't know what to do. Call the cops? Tell them what? That someone left a Valentine at my door? They wouldn't do anything. So I just sat there, waiting, listening, hoping this was the end of it. It wasn't. The third card arrived inside my apartment. I don't know how. I don't know when. But I woke up on Valentine's morning and found it on my nightstand. A single red envelope. I nearly fell out of bed. I had locked the doors, the windows. There was no way anyone got in, but the envelope was there, right next to me. I reached for it with trembling hands, already knowing this one would be worse. And I was right. The card inside had no message, just a photo, taken from inside my apartment, of me, asleep. I stopped breathing. My mind shut down. I checked the closet, the bathroom, every corner. Nothing, but the air felt wrong, heavy, like something was still there, watching, waiting. I didn't call the cops. I didn't call anyone. I just grabbed my keys, walked out, and never came back. It's been a year. I live in a new apartment across the city. Different locks, different floor, new phone number. I don't talk about what happened. I don't celebrate Valentine's Day, but it doesn't matter. Because tonight, it happened again. I got home late, tossed my bag on the counter, and then, ding dong, my stomach dropped. I walked to the door, looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I opened the door, and there it was, a single red envelope, resting on my welcome mat, waiting for me. I didn't want to pick it up, but I did. I tore it open with shaking hands, and inside, another photo, not of me, of my new apartment, taken from outside the window, and on the back, a message. I found you. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they want, but I know one thing. This isn't over. They're watching, and next Valentine's Day, they're coming inside. I never should have gone on that date. I wasn't even planning to. I had never cared much about Valentine's Day, and after my last breakup, I wasn't exactly in the mood to pretend I was ready to start over. But my friends wouldn't let it go. You've been alone too long. Come on, it's just one date. Worst case, it's awkward, and you never see her again. I should have said no, but I didn't. Her name was Claire. She was pretty in a quiet, effortless way. Long black hair, pale blue eyes, a small beauty mark near the corner of her lips. She had a kind of self-assurance that made it feel like she already knew me. Our mutual friend, Jason, set us up. He swore we'd hit it off instantly. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. The conversation flowed. Claire was charming without trying too hard, flirty without being obvious. She asked me all the right questions. She liked all the same things I did. Too much, actually. I don't know when it started to feel off, but by the time dinner was halfway over, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The way she knew things she shouldn't have. The way she never broke eye contact. The way she smiled at me before I said something, like she already knew what I was about to say. It was subtle, but I could feel it. Something was wrong. Then, toward the end of the night, she leaned in slightly, resting her chin on her hand. So, do you believe in fate? The same first question my ex had asked me on our first date. I forced a laugh. That's a weird way to start a conversation. She smiled. Not really. Some people are just meant to meet. Don't you think? I wasn't sure how to respond. She stirred her drink lazily, her eyes never leaving mine. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out something small and red. She placed it on the table between us. A red envelope. My stomach twisted. I don't know why, but the sight of it made me cold. Open it, she said. I hesitated before picking it up. It wasn't sealed, just a simple, folded card inside. I pulled it out, my fingers suddenly clumsy. And when I saw what was inside, I felt the air leave my lungs. It was a photo of me, taken from inside my bedroom. Last night, I looked up at Claire, my breath catching in my throat. She smiled. I've missed you, she whispered. I jerked back in my chair, my breath catching in my throat. I looked up at Claire. She was gone. The chair across from me was empty. No red envelope. No photos. No sign she had ever been there at all. The restaurant around me blurred, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. I looked around in wild panic, searching the tables, the booths, the bar. She was nowhere. The waitress passed by, glancing at me. You okay, man? I swallowed hard. The girl I was with. Did you see where she went? She frowned. You've been sitting alone all night. My skin went cold. I stared at her, my entire body stiff with disbelief. No, that's not possible. She was right here. She gave me this. I looked down at my hands. The photos were gone. The red envelope? Gone. Nothing but an empty table in front of me. I felt sick. I reached for my phone with trembling hands. Opened my texts. No messages. No calls. No proof that Claire ever existed. I suddenly couldn't breathe. I stood up so fast the chair nearly toppled over, fumbling in my pocket for my wallet. I threw way too much cash onto the table and stumbled outside, the cold air hitting my face like a slap. The street was mostly empty, a few couples walking by, laughing, oblivious. I grabbed my phone again, opened my contacts. Jason, the guy who had set us up. I called him, pressing the phone to my ear, my heartbeat slamming against my ribs. It rang once, twice, then, "Hey man, what's up?" "Jason," I gasped, still struggling to catch my breath. "Claire, who is she?" Silence. A beat too long. Then, Who? I blinked, my mouth going dry. Claire. The girl you set me up with. More silence. Then, Jason laughed, but it sounded confused. Dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. My blood ran cold. I stopped walking. What? I whispered. I didn't set you up with anyone. A dull ringing filled my ears. No, I murmured. No, that's not Jason. We talked about this. You told me about her. You said you knew her from work? Man, I haven't even been at work this week. I've been sick. I haven't talked to anyone. I felt my knees go weak. My vision swam. This wasn't real. It wasn't possible. And then, Jason sighed. Hey, you good? You sound weird. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because over the phone, through Jason's mic, I heard something. A whisper. Soft. Faint. From his end of the call. I've missed you. The same thing Claire had said to me. My stomach dropped. The phone nearly slipped from my hands. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. And then Jason said something that made my blood run cold. Dude, hold on a sec. There's a girl at my door. I froze. My grip on the phone tightened so hard my knuckles went white. A girl? I croaked. Jason let out a confused laugh. Yeah, hold on, she's knocking. Tap, tap, tap. The exact same way Claire had tapped on the envelope. My heart stopped. Jason, don't open it, I gasped. But I was too late. I heard the door creak open. A long pause. Then Jason's voice, confused, but slightly amused. Oh, hey, wait, have we met before? I staggered backward, shaking my head. I already knew what he was going to say next. I already knew what she was whispering to him. The same thing she had whispered to me. Do you believe in fate? The line went dead. Jason was never seen again. And every Valentine's Day, at exactly midnight, I get a message. No caller ID. Just a photo of my bedroom, taken from the corner of the room. A little closer than last time. A little clearer. Like whoever is taking them is getting bolder. Like they're waiting. I started receiving the notes about 2 weeks before Valentine's Day. At first, they were innocent. You have a beautiful smile. I love the way you laugh. You're special. No name. No return address. Just handwritten notes on folded pieces of paper tucked neatly under my apartment door. At first, I thought it was cute. Maybe a secret admirer. Maybe a coworker who was too shy to say anything in person. But after the first few days, something about them started to feel off. The handwriting was always the same. Perfect. Neat. Too precise. And the paper smelled faintly of something sweet. Something like roses. I started paying more attention, watching the hallway whenever I walked in. But I never saw anyone. Then, a few days later, I got a new note. And this one was different. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't a compliment. Just one sentence. I see you when you sleep. I felt a cold shiver crawl down my spine. I checked the door. Locked. Checked the windows. Locked. I tried to brush it off. Told myself it was just some stupid prank. But then, the next morning, another note arrived. This time, it wasn't tucked under my door. It was waiting for me on my pillow, inside my apartment. I didn't sleep that night. I sat awake, my back against the headboard, my pulse hammering in my ears. I didn't know what to do. I thought about calling the cops, but what would I say? That someone had somehow gotten into my locked apartment, left a note, and disappeared without a trace? I knew they wouldn't believe me. I didn't even believe me. So I did what anyone would do. I changed my locks. I bought a security camera, and I tried to go back to normal. For a few days, nothing happened. No notes. No signs of entry. I started to think maybe it was over. Maybe whoever it was had moved on. Then, the night before Valentine's Day, I got another note. It was taped to my bathroom mirror. I stared at it for a long time before I forced myself to read it. You changed the locks. That wasn't very nice. I felt sick. My hands shook as I ripped it off the mirror. I checked my camera footage, my fingers trembling as I scrolled through the recordings. But there was nothing. No one entering. No one leaving. Like the note had just appeared. I barely slept that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling watched. Like whoever was leaving the notes wasn't outside my apartment anymore. They were inside. By morning, I had decided. I was going to pack my things and leave. I didn't care about my lease. Didn't care about breaking my contract. I just needed to get out. But before I could start packing, I heard it. A soft scraping sound, coming from the hallway. My stomach dropped. Slowly, I crept toward the door, pressing my ear against the wood. Silence. Then, a piece of paper slid under the door. I stumbled backward, my breath catching in my throat. I stared at the note, my heart hammering. I didn't want to pick it up, didn't want to know what it said, but I had to. I reached for it with trembling fingers, slowly unfolding it. And when I saw the message, I felt my whole body go cold. Don't leave. I'm waiting inside. I froze. A sharp, electric fear ran through me. No. I whirled around, scanning my apartment. The closet door, slightly open. The bathroom door, half shut. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys. I wasn't going to check. I wasn't going to look. I was just going to run. I grabbed my bag, yanked open the door, and stopped. Because in the hallway, taped to the wall right outside my door, was a photo. A photo of me, taken from inside my apartment, taken last night. And underneath it, written in that same perfect, precise handwriting, Happy Valentine's Day. I left that day and never went back. Didn't take my things. Didn't tell anyone. Just walked out and never looked behind me. The landlord called a few times, asked if I was okay, said my apartment was still untouched. I told him he could keep my stuff. I didn't want it anymore. I moved to a new city, got a new job, a new number. For a while, things were normal again. Until today, when I checked my mail and found a single red envelope with no return address, no stamp, just my name, written in perfect, precise handwriting. I didn't want to open it, but I did. And inside was a photo, not of my old apartment, not of my new one, not even of me. A photo of my bedroom, taken from inside my closet. I don't sleep anymore. I don't turn off the lights. But I know it doesn't matter, because they found me again. And next Valentine's Day, I don't think they'll leave a note. I think they'll be waiting for me. I never wanted to go to the Valentine's Day party. I wasn't in the mood to celebrate anything, much less love. My last relationship had ended in a slow, painful mess, and I was perfectly fine spending the night in my apartment, drinking cheap wine and ignoring the outside world. But my friend Ryan wouldn't stop pushing. Come on, dude, he said. It's not a couples thing, just a chill get-together. Free drinks, decent music. You need to get out. I refused. At least, until he said something that made my stomach twist. She's going to be there. I didn't have to ask who he meant. Sophie, my ex. The last person I wanted to see. The person who had torn me apart, left me wondering if anything between us had ever been real. Ryan must have seen my expression because he shrugged. Just saying. If you want to prove you've moved on, showing up wouldn't hurt. I don't know why that got to me. Maybe my pride. Maybe my bruised ego. But I went. And that was the biggest mistake of my life. The party was held at someone's house on the edge of town. One of those massive old houses that had been renovated into a modern, sleek-looking mansion. The music was loud. The air thick with the scent of alcohol and perfume. Groups of people I barely knew milled around, laughing, drinking, flirting. I kept looking for Sophie, but I didn't see her. Relieved, I grabbed a drink and forced myself to relax. That's when I noticed her. She was sitting alone in the corner of the room, half hidden in the shadows. Long black hair, dark red dress, pale skin. She wasn't talking to anyone, wasn't checking her phone, just watching me. The moment our eyes met, she smiled. And I don't know why, but my chest tightened. Not in a good way. Something about her smile was off. Like she already knew me. Like she had been waiting. I looked away, took a sip of my drink. When I glanced back, she was gone. An hour passed. Ryan had disappeared somewhere, leaving me alone with strangers. I considered leaving, but as I made my way to the door, a soft voice stopped me. You're not leaving already, are you? I turned. It was her, standing just a few feet away. smiling that same strange, knowing smile. "I don't think we've met," she said. Something about the way she said it made my stomach turn, like it was a lie. She held out her hand. "I'm Lillian." Her fingers were ice cold. I forced a polite smile. "Nice to meet you." She tilted her head slightly, studying me. Then she said something that sent a cold chill down my spine. "I like your new apartment." I stiffened. I hadn't told her I moved. Hell, I hadn't told her anything. "What?" I asked, forcing a laugh. She just smiled. "Nothing. Just making conversation." I took a step back. "I should. Dance with me." Her fingers curled around my wrist before I could react. And for a split second, everything blurred. The music faded. The people around us seemed distant, out of focus, like the room had stretched, warped, like I was somewhere else. I tried to pull away, but her grip was too tight. She leaned in close, her lips brushing against my ear. "You should have stayed home." And then, I blacked out. I woke up alone, in an empty house. The party was over. No music, no people, just silence. I sat up, my head pounding. My clothes were wrinkled, my mouth dry. What the hell happened? I checked my phone. 3:12 a.m. No messages. No missed calls. I stumbled toward the door, my heart hammering. As I reached for the handle, something caught my eye. A red envelope, sitting neatly on the floor, waiting for me. My breath hitched. I bent down, slowly picking it up. There was no name, no address, just a simple, folded card inside, with 2 words written in dark red ink. "Look outside." I didn't want to, but I had to. I stepped onto the porch, the cold night air biting at my skin. And then, I froze, because parked across the street was my car, and sitting inside, staring at me through the windshield, was Lillian, smiling, waiting. I felt my chest tighten. No, I had no memory of driving home, no memory of how I got here. And the worst part? My apartment keys were still in my pocket. I turned and ran. I didn't go home that night. I booked a motel, locked the door, and stayed awake until the sun came up. By morning, I tried convincing myself it was a prank, that maybe someone had spiked my drink. But deep down, I knew better. And when I finally worked up the courage to check my apartment, I found another red envelope, waiting for me on the kitchen counter. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a photo of me, taken inside my bedroom, while I was sleeping, and written at the bottom, "See you soon." I don't know who she was. I don't know what she wanted. But every year, on Valentine's Day, I get another envelope, another photo. Each time, she's a little closer, a little clearer. And I know one day, I'll wake up, and she won't be in the photo anymore. She'll be right beside me, waiting. I was never supposed to find the letters. I don't know how long they had been coming, how many had been slipped under my door before I finally noticed. But once I saw the first one, I couldn't ignore them. It was about a week before Valentine's Day. I had just gotten home from work, exhausted, barely paying attention as I fumbled with my keys. That's when I saw it. A small, red envelope, lying on the floor, right inside my apartment. At first, I thought it was junk mail. Maybe some Valentine's Day promotion or a misplaced card from one of my neighbors. But when I picked it up, my stomach twisted, because my name was written on the front, and underneath it, in small, careful letters. I never stopped watching. I stood there for a long time, just staring at the envelope in my hands. The handwriting was neat, almost too perfect. My first instinct was that it had to be from someone I knew. Maybe a bad joke from a coworker, a weird prank from an old friend. But something about it felt wrong. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No return address, no signature, just one sentence. "I remember the way you looked that night." I felt a sharp, electric jolt of fear, because I didn't know who sent this. But they knew me, and they were talking about a specific night, a night I had tried to forget. It happened 2 years ago. I had been seeing someone casually, Emma. We weren't serious, just going on a few dates here and there. But there was something strange about her. She was obsessed with Valentine's Day, not just in a normal way, flowers and chocolate, romantic dinners. She talked about it like it was a religion, like it was the most important day of the year. She would say things like, "Love means forever," and "Valentine's Day is the one night we get to prove our devotion." At first, I thought she was just really into the holiday. But as it got closer, she started acting differently. She kept asking me to spend the night with her, kept saying, "It has to be you." The way she said it made my skin crawl. I told her I had other plans. That night, Valentine's night, I stayed home, and at exactly midnight, I got a text from her. "You ruined everything." That was the last thing she ever sent me. The next day, I found out she had gone missing. Just vanished. The police searched for weeks, but there were no leads, no evidence. It was like she had never existed. I tried to forget, tried to move on. But now, standing in my apartment, staring at this red envelope in my hands, I knew someone hadn't forgotten. Someone still remembered that night, and they were watching me. I wanted to believe it was a prank. I really did. But the next morning, I found another letter. This time, it was taped to my bathroom mirror, and inside was a photo of me, taken from outside my window. At night, I checked my phone, my heart pounding. No missed calls, no texts. I checked the locks, the windows. Everything was secure. So how the hell was someone getting inside? I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emma's face, and I kept thinking about that night. Had I made a mistake? Had I ignored something I shouldn't have? Or worse, had she never really left? The night before Valentine's Day, I got one last letter. This one wasn't slipped under the door. It wasn't taped to my mirror. It was waiting for me on my pillow, inside my apartment. My breath caught in my throat. The room felt wrong, like the air was thicker, heavier, like someone was still here. I reached for the envelope with shaking hands, peeled it open. Inside was a folded piece of paper, and when I read the message, I felt my stomach drop. "I found you. I never really left. See you soon." A shadow moved in the corner of my eye. I turned. The closet door was open, just an inch, a sliver of darkness beyond it. I stood there, frozen, my pulse hammering. Then, slowly, I saw fingers, pale, thin, sliding around the edge of the door. I don't remember grabbing my keys, don't remember running, just the feeling of pure terror as I bolted out of my apartment, sprinting into the cold night air. I never went back. I left everything behind, moved across the city, changed my number, blocked everyone I knew from my old life. And for a while, it worked. For a while, I thought I was safe. Until tonight, when I came home to my new apartment and found a red envelope waiting for me, with no return address, no stamp, just my name, written in perfect, precise handwriting. I didn't want to open it, but I did. Inside was a photo, not of me, not of my apartment, of my bedroom, taken from inside the closet. And underneath it, a single message. "You should have stayed with me. I don't turn off the lights anymore. I don't check the closet, because I know one day when I do, she'll be there, waiting." I had completely forgotten about the box until I found it in my attic. I wasn't even looking for it. I was just digging through old junk, trying to clear out some space, when I spotted it tucked away in the corner. A small, red shoebox, covered in dust. The second I saw it, a strange feeling crawled up my spine, because I knew exactly what it was, and I knew who it belonged to. Her name was Megan. She was my first love, my first everything, and for a while, we were happy, until she started acting strange. It wasn't anything obvious at first, just little things, like how she hated when I went out with my friends, or how she always wanted to know where I was, or how she kept talking about Valentine's Day, not in the normal way, not about chocolates or flowers or dinner reservations. She talked about it like it was a promise, like it was some sacred vow we had to keep. No matter what happens, we'll be together forever. At first, I thought it was sweet, until I tried to break up with her, and she told me I couldn't. "You're mine." Her voice was so calm, like she was stating a fact, like she had already decided. I should have left then, but I didn't. And by the time Valentine's Day arrived, she was gone. Just disappeared. Her family searched. The police got involved. But there were no leads, no evidence, no body. It was like she had never existed, and after a while, I forced myself to forget. But now, standing in my attic, staring at the red shoebox covered in dust, I knew I never really had. I hesitated before picking it up. It was heavier than I expected. I carried it downstairs, into the light, brushing off the thick layer of dust. For a moment, I just stared at it. Then, slowly, I peeled off the lid. Inside were letters, dozens of them, each one sealed in a red envelope. My stomach twisted, because I already knew what they were. Love letters. Megan used to write them all the time. Little notes, hidden in my pockets, my backpack, slipped under my door. At first, they were sweet, but toward the end, they became obsessive, dark. I hesitated, then picked up the first one. I peeled it open with shaking fingers. Inside was a folded piece of paper, and when I read it, my blood ran cold. I knew you would come back to me. I swallowed hard. This wasn't possible. Megan had written these before she disappeared, hadn't she? My hands trembled as I grabbed another envelope, tore it open. I never left. A sharp, electric fear ran through me. I reached for another, and another, each one worse than the last. I've been so patient. I know where you sleep. I see you when you dream. I could barely breathe. My hands shook as I grabbed the last envelope at the bottom of the box. Unlike the others, this one had no dust on it, like it had been placed there recently. And when I opened it, I felt everything stop, because inside was a photo of me, taken from outside my bedroom window. Last night, I slammed the box shut. My chest heaved as I tried to think, tried to make sense of it. This was impossible. Megan was gone. She had been missing for years, hadn't she? A cold, sick feeling twisted in my stomach, because I suddenly wasn't sure anymore. Maybe she never left. Maybe she had been waiting. And maybe I had just brought her back. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined her, standing outside, watching, waiting. By morning, I had convinced myself I was being paranoid. It was just old memories messing with my head. I grabbed the shoebox, fully intending to throw it away. But when I walked into the living room, I froze, because sitting in the center of the coffee table was another red envelope. I didn't put it there. I didn't open it, but I already knew what it would say. See you soon. I left that day and never looked back. Didn't take my things. Didn't tell anyone. Just disappeared. Because I knew, if I stayed, if I kept reading, she would find me. And this time, she wouldn't let me go. That was a year ago. I moved across the country, got a new job, a new name, and for a while, I thought I was safe. Until today, when I checked my mailbox and found a single red envelope with no return address, no stamp, just my name, written in perfect, precise handwriting. I didn't want to open it, but I did. And inside was a photo, not of me, not of my new home, a photo of my old attic, the red shoebox, open and empty. I don't sleep anymore. I don't check my windows, because I know one day I'll wake up and she'll be there, waiting. I wasn't expecting to get anything for Valentine's Day. I wasn't dating anyone, hadn't been in a while, and had no plans to change that. So when I saw the red envelope sitting on my desk at work, my first thought was that someone had left it there by mistake. There was no name on the outside, no hint of who it was from. I hesitated before opening it, my fingers clumsy against the paper. Inside was a simple Valentine's Day card, pink and red, heart-shaped, and written inside, in perfect, precise handwriting. I'm so glad we finally found each other. I frowned. No name, no signature, just that single sentence. I glanced around the office, half expecting to see someone watching me, waiting for my reaction. But no one was looking. No one seemed to notice. I told myself it was probably a joke, some kind of office prank. But something about it made my stomach twist. Something about the way it was written, like they already knew me. The second letter arrived the next day. It was waiting for me when I got to work, sitting neatly on my desk. Another red envelope. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was another Valentine's Day card, and written inside, "You're even more perfect than I imagined." A slow chill crept up my spine, because this wasn't a joke. This wasn't random. Someone was watching me. Someone who thought they knew me. By the third day, I was starting to panic, because when I arrived at my desk, there were two envelopes, side by side, waiting. My hands shook as I opened them. The first one was simple. "I love seeing you every day." My breath hitched. Then I opened the second, and my blood ran cold, because inside was a photo of me, taken from outside my office window. My stomach twisted into knots. I checked my phone, my emails, my messages, nothing. Whoever was leaving these notes wasn't just watching me. They were getting closer. I barely slept that night. Every sound made me flinch. The creak of the pipes, the wind outside, the distant hum of traffic. I locked the doors, checked the windows, told myself it was just a prank. But deep down, I knew better. And the next morning, when I got to work, I found another letter. This one was different. The envelope wasn't red. It was black. And inside, the message was short. "I don't like him." I stared at it, confused. Who were they talking about? Who was him? Then my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan, my coworker. "Hey, want to grab lunch later?" And suddenly, I understood. Ethan had been flirting with me for weeks. Harmless, casual. I never took it seriously. But now, whoever was leaving these notes had noticed. And they weren't happy. I swallowed hard, my hands trembling as I shoved the letter into my bag. I spent the rest of the day on edge, watching, waiting. Every time Ethan came near my desk, I felt sick, like something terrible was about to happen, like I was being watched. And that night, when I got home, there was a red envelope waiting for me. Inside my apartment, on my pillow, I could barely breathe as I opened it, my hands shaking violently. Inside was a folded piece of paper, and when I read it, I felt my stomach drop. I took care of him. I called Ethan immediately. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. I could barely think, my entire body trembling as I checked the news, my mind racing. Had something happened to him? Had someone? No, this wasn't real. It was just a prank. It had to be. But then, my phone buzzed. A new text. No name. No caller ID. Just a photo of Ethan's car, sitting in the parking lot. And in the driver's seat was a red envelope, waiting. I didn't go to work the next day. I couldn't. I stayed locked inside my apartment, jumping at every sound, my heart hammering against my ribs. I checked the news again. Nothing. No reports. No accidents. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that Ethan was fine, that this was all some elaborate joke. But I still couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat awake, staring at my door, waiting, listening. And at exactly midnight, I heard it. A soft tap, tap, tap. My breath hitched. I turned toward the sound, my pulse roaring in my ears. And sitting on the floor, just beneath my front door, was a red envelope. My hands shook as I reached for it, peeling it open with trembling fingers. Inside was a single piece of paper, and written in perfect, precise handwriting. "You don't need anyone else, just me." I dropped the letter. My whole body locked up, because I finally understood. They weren't just watching me. They weren't just following me. They were getting rid of anyone who got too close. And now, I was completely alone, exactly like they wanted. That was a year ago. I moved across the country, changed my name, deleted every social media account. I cut off everyone, because I knew, if I let anyone get close to me again, they would see, and they would take care of them. For me. Forever. I thought it was over. I thought I was finally free. Until tonight, when I got home and found a red envelope on my doorstep. No stamp, no address, just my name. And inside, a photo of me, taken from my bedroom window. And underneath, a single sentence. "You look lonely. I'm coming back." I don't sleep anymore. I don't talk to people, because I know one day, they'll be here. And this time, I won't be alone ever again. I never expected to find anything when I started cleaning out my grandmother's house. She had passed away just a few weeks before, and my family had asked me to help sort through her things. She had lived alone for decades, in the same old house on the outskirts of town, where the air always seemed still, like the world outside had long since moved on without her. I spent days going through dusty boxes, yellowed photo albums, stacks of letters no one had read in years. But then, in the very back of her bedroom closet, hidden beneath a pile of moth-eaten blankets, I found the box. It was small, locked with a rusted latch. The wood was carved with hearts. Something about it made my stomach twist, like I had just found something I wasn't meant to see. I forced the latch open with a knife, and inside were dozens of red envelopes, neatly stacked, waiting. At first, I thought they were just old love letters. Valentine's Day cards from my grandfather, maybe. But when I opened the first one, my breath caught in my throat, because inside was a photo of me, taken just a few nights ago. I felt my hands start to shake. I grabbed another envelope, ripping it open. Another photo, also of me, taken from outside my window. I grabbed another, and another, each one worse than the last. Me, walking to my car. Me, unlocking my front door. Me, asleep in my bed. I nearly dropped the box. This wasn't possible. My grandmother had been dead for weeks. So who had put these here? And why had she kept them? I didn't sleep that night. I kept the box beside me, staring at it like it would disappear if I looked away. My mind raced. Had my grandmother been watching me? Had she been following me? I thought about all those years I had visited her. How she would always say things like, "I'll always keep an eye on you." I thought she meant it figuratively. But now, I wasn't so sure. By the next morning, I had convinced myself that someone else had left the box there. Maybe someone had been watching her. Maybe someone had been watching both of us. I needed answers. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to visit her basement. The basement had always creeped me out as a kid. It was cold, filled with old furniture, the air thick with dust. But today, something felt different. The second I stepped inside, I knew someone had been down here. Recently, there were footprints in the dust, and in the very back, half hidden behind an old cabinet, was a door. A door I had never seen before. My breath hitched. It was small, barely wide enough for a person to fit through, and it had a lock. I hesitated before reaching for the handle. It was unlocked. Slowly, I pulled it open. Inside was a room, tiny, bare, and in the center was a chair, facing the wall, and beside it, stacked neatly in a pile, were more red envelopes. My stomach turned. I stepped closer, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. I picked up the top envelope, opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was another photo, but this time, it wasn't of me. It was of my grandmother, sitting in the chair, her back to the camera, her head tilted, like she was listening to something. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the letter. My breathing was ragged, my skin ice cold, and that's when I saw it. At the bottom of the photo, written in small, careful handwriting, "I never left." I don't remember running out of the basement, don't remember driving home, just the feeling of pure terror gripping my chest like a vice. I tried to burn the box that night, but when I threw it in the fireplace, it wouldn't catch fire. The wood wouldn't burn. The envelopes wouldn't burn. Like something wanted me to keep them, to read them, to remember. I moved away after that, left the house, left the town, tried to pretend none of it ever happened. And for a while, I thought it worked. Until tonight, when I got home and found a red envelope sitting on my kitchen table, waiting for me. I don't know how it got there. I don't want to open it, but I already know what it will say, because I was never supposed to leave, and neither was she. I work the night shift at a hotel. It's not a glamorous job, but it pays the bills. Most nights are uneventful, just checking in late travelers, dealing with the occasional noise complaint, and watching the security cameras to pass the time. But last Valentine's Day, something happened. Something I still can't explain. It started around 2:30 a.m. I was behind the front desk, flipping through the logbook, when the phone rang. Room 709. I hesitated. That was weird, because room 709 was empty. I had checked the system earlier. No guests had been booked in that room for the past 3 days. I picked up the phone anyway. Front desk. How can I help you? Silence. For a few seconds, all I could hear was static. Then, a woman's voice. Soft. Barely a whisper. Hello? Is someone there? A strange, electric chill crawled down my spine. Ma'am, I said carefully, there's no one checked into this room. Are you supposed to be here? A pause. Then, I don't know where I am. I sat up straighter, glancing at the security monitors. The camera feed for the 7th floor showed an empty hallway, completely still. No movement. No open doors. Nothing. I gripped the phone tighter. Can you tell me your name? The woman's breathing was shaky. I don't remember. Her voice sounded distant, faint, like she was calling from far away. I clicked into the hotel system, scrolling through the records for room 709. Last guest checked out 3 days ago. The room had been cleaned, reset. It was supposed to be empty. Ma'am, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, can you tell me anything about how you got there? Silence. Then, a soft rustling sound, like someone shifting in bed. Then a whisper. I think he's coming back. My stomach dropped. Who? I asked, but the line went dead. I stared at the phone, my pulse hammering. I didn't want to go up there, but I had to. I grabbed the master key and took the elevator to the 7th floor. When the doors opened, the hallway was dead silent. I stepped out, the carpet absorbing my footsteps. Room 709 was at the end of the hall. As I approached, I felt it. That strange, electric tension in the air. Like the room was waiting. I reached for the handle. It was already unlocked. My breath hitched. Slowly, I pushed the door open, and I saw her. A woman was sitting on the edge of the bed, wearing a white dress. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders. She didn't look at me. She just sat there, staring down at the floor, like she didn't even know I was there. My mouth went dry. Ma'am, I whispered. Slowly, she lifted her head, and when I saw her face, I felt my entire body lock up, because I knew her. I had seen her before, on the security cameras. 3 days ago, she was the woman who had checked into room 709, the woman who had never checked out, the woman who had been reported missing. My chest tightened. I reached for my radio, my fingers trembling. I found her, I choked out. I think she needs help. I turned back to her, but the bed was empty. She was gone, like she had never been there at all. I don't remember running back to the lobby. Don't remember breathing. Just the feeling of cold terror clawing at my chest. I checked the security footage, rewound it to the moment I had entered room 709. I played it back once, twice, but in the video, I was alone. There was no woman, no one sitting on the bed, just me, talking to empty air. I called the cops that night, told them about the call, about the woman, about how she had disappeared. They checked the room. Nothing. No signs that anyone had been there. But then, they found something, tucked underneath the bed. A red envelope. They handed it to me, confused. Was this here before? One of the officers asked. I shook my head. I had no idea how it got there. My hands shook as I peeled it open. Inside was a single piece of paper, and written in faint, trembling handwriting. He's coming back. I don't work at the hotel anymore. I quit the next day. I don't take night shifts. I don't answer calls from unknown numbers. But every Valentine's Day, at exactly 2:30 a.m., my phone rings. I don't pick up. I let it go to voicemail. And every year, there's a message. A woman's voice. Soft. Shaky. Distant. Hello? Is someone there? I delete it every time. But I know the truth. I know she's still in that room, waiting. And one day, he'll come back for her. And maybe, he'll come back for me too. I didn't think much of the Valentine's Day package when I first saw it. It was sitting neatly on my doorstep when I got home from work, wrapped in soft pink paper, tied with a thin red ribbon. No return address. No note. I wasn't expecting anything, but I figured maybe it was from my mom. She had a habit of sending small gifts on holidays, even though she lived across the country. I brought it inside, set it on the kitchen table, and peeled the ribbon loose. The moment I opened the box, my stomach twisted. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. I frowned, pulling it out. The image was grainy, slightly overexposed, but I could still see what it was. A picture of me, taken from outside my window. Last night, I felt my entire body go cold. I checked my phone. No texts, no missed calls. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? That someone had left me a picture? That wasn't a crime. I tried to shake it off, but something about it felt wrong. Like it wasn't just a prank. Like it was a warning. And then I saw it. At the bottom of the Polaroid, written in small, precise handwriting. See you soon. That night, I locked every door, closed every curtain, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined someone outside, standing in the dark, waiting. By morning, I had convinced myself I was overreacting. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe someone at work thought it would be funny to mess with me. I threw the Polaroid in the trash, and I tried to forget. The second package arrived the next night. Same size, same pink wrapping paper, same red ribbon. My hands shook as I picked it up. I already knew what was inside. Another Polaroid. This one was taken from inside my house. I felt my stomach lurch. The angle. It was taken from my living room. I recognized the couch, the coffee table, and in the background was me, asleep. I dropped the photo. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. This wasn't possible. How did they get inside? I checked the locks, the windows. Nothing was broken. Nothing was out of place. But I knew, deep down, someone had been here. I didn't sleep that night. I sat awake, gripping my phone, waiting, listening. The apartment felt too quiet, the air too heavy, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. I don't know when I finally drifted off, but when I woke up, there was another package, sitting inside my bedroom, right beside my bed. I stared at it, my entire body frozen. I didn't want to open it, but I had to. My fingers trembled as I pulled off the ribbon, peeled back the wrapping paper. Inside was another Polaroid. I held my breath as I looked at it. It was a picture of my bedroom, taken from inside the closet. And in the photo, I could see the closet door, slightly open, a shadow just barely visible in the darkness beyond it. And at the bottom of the photo, a message. I was so close. I don't remember running, just grabbing my keys, sprinting out of the apartment, and never looking back. I called the police, told them everything. They searched the place. No signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no evidence that anyone else had been there. But I knew the truth. I felt the truth. Someone had been watching me. Someone had been inside my home. And worst of all, they weren't done. It's been a year. I moved to a new city, new apartment, new locks. I don't tell people where I live. I don't post online. I don't open packages. But tonight, when I got home, there was one waiting for me, neatly wrapped in pink paper, tied with a red ribbon, sitting right outside my door. My hands shook as I picked it up. My breath hitched as I peeled it open. Inside was a single Polaroid of my new bedroom, taken from inside the closet. And underneath it, a message. I found you. I don't sleep anymore. Because I know, one day, the package won't have a photo. It'll just be him, waiting. I had never received a Valentine's Day card before. Not as a kid, not as a teenager, and definitely not as an adult. So when I found a red envelope in my mailbox on the morning of February 14th, I actually felt excited. For a second, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, someone out there liked me. Someone had thought of me. Someone had been watching. I just didn't realize how closely. The envelope was simple, bright red, no return address. Inside was a card, covered in little hearts, and written inside, in perfect, careful handwriting. I've been waiting for you. No name, no signature, just those 5 words. A strange chill crawled down my spine, because the way it was written, it didn't feel romantic. It felt like a warning, like whoever wrote it already knew me, like they had been watching, for a long, long time. I spent the rest of the day feeling uneasy. Every time I glanced at my phone, I half expected to see a text from an unknown number. Every time I looked out my window, I expected to see someone standing outside. But nothing happened. No messages, no calls, no sign that anyone had been there at all. By evening, I had almost convinced myself it was just a prank. And then, at exactly midnight, the doorbell rang. I froze. The apartment was silent, the air thick, like the whole world was holding its breath. I swallowed hard and crept toward the door. Through the peephole, nothing. The hallway was empty. I hesitated. Then, slowly, I unlocked the door and cracked it open. And there, sitting neatly on my welcome mat, was another red envelope, waiting. My hands shook as I picked it up. It was still warm, like someone had been holding it. I stepped inside, locked the door, and peeled it open with trembling fingers. Inside was another Valentine's Day card, and written inside, "You shouldn't have ignored me." My breath hitched, because I hadn't responded. I hadn't told anyone about the first card, but somehow, whoever had left this knew. And now, they were angry. I barely slept that night. Every little sound made my skin crawl. The ticking clock, the wind outside, the faint creak of the floorboards. I kept checking the door, checking the windows, checking the closet. By morning, I felt sick with exhaustion, but I still forced myself to go to work. I needed to be around people. I needed to feel normal. For a few hours, it actually worked, until I got home and found the third card, sitting on my kitchen table. I hadn't left the door unlocked. I hadn't left the window open, but someone had been inside. And this time, they had left a photo of me, taken from my bedroom doorway, while I was asleep. And underneath it, "You look so peaceful when you sleep." I don't remember running, just grabbing my keys, my wallet, my phone, and getting the hell out. I checked into a motel that night, didn't tell anyone where I was. I kept my phone off, kept the lights on, stayed awake, waiting, watching, listening, but nothing happened. And for a moment, I thought I was safe, until someone knocked on my door. I sat there, frozen, heart hammering, fingers clenched around the motel key. The knock came again, soft, slow, like they weren't in a hurry, like they already knew I was inside. I forced myself to stand, forced myself to creep toward the door. Through the peephole, nothing, just an empty hallway. I swallowed hard. Then, slowly, I cracked the door open, and sitting outside, on the motel welcome mat, was another red envelope. I slammed the door shut, locked it, bolted it. My breathing came fast, sharp. I didn't want to open it, didn't want to see, but I already knew. Whoever had been watching me had found me again. I left that night, got in my car and just drove. Didn't stop, didn't think. I didn't go home, didn't go to work. I just disappeared, because I knew, if I stayed, if I ignored them again, they wouldn't leave another card. They would be waiting for me in the dark. That was a year ago. I live in a new city now. New name, new job. I don't tell people where I live. I don't celebrate Valentine's Day. But tonight, when I got home, there was a red envelope waiting for me. No stamp, no address, just my name. And inside, a photo of my new apartment, taken from across the street. And underneath it, "I told you, you can't hide from me. I don't sleep anymore, because I know one day, the envelope won't have a photo. It'll just be him, waiting." I never should have opened the door. It was late, way too late for visitors. I had been home alone, curled up on the couch, half asleep to the sound of the rain outside. Then, knock, knock, knock. The sound jolted me awake. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I sat up, heart pounding. Who the hell would be at my door at this hour? I reached for my phone, checking the time. 12:03 a.m. I hesitated, checked the peephole. Nothing, just an empty hallway. I swallowed hard. Then, I heard it. A soft scraping sound, like paper sliding against the floor. I unlocked the door, cracked it open just an inch, and there, sitting neatly on my welcome mat, was a red envelope, waiting. I felt a sharp, uneasy chill crawl up my spine. The envelope was perfectly placed, bright red, No return address. No footsteps in the hallway. No signs that anyone had been there. I picked it up with trembling hands. It was warm, like someone had been holding it just seconds ago. I stepped inside, locked the door, and peeled it open. Inside was a single Valentine's Day card, and written inside, in perfect, careful handwriting, "I know you're still awake." I stared at it, my pulse roaring in my ears, because whoever had left this, they were watching me. Right now, I barely slept that night. Every sound made my skin crawl. The ticking clock, the wind outside, the distant hum of traffic. I kept checking the door, checking the windows, checking the closet. By morning, I had convinced myself it was just a prank. Maybe one of my friends thought it would be funny. Maybe it was some random weirdo messing with me. That's what I told myself. Until I got home from work and found another red envelope. This one was inside my apartment, sitting on my kitchen table. I hadn't left the door unlocked. I hadn't left the window open, but someone had been inside. And this time, they had left a photo of me, taken from the end of my hallway, while I was sitting on the couch. And underneath it, "You shouldn't have ignored me. I don't remember breathing, don't remember moving." Just the feeling of pure terror sinking into my bones. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking as I dialed 911. The operator picked up. "911, what's your emergency?" I tried to speak, tried to tell them that someone had been in my apartment, that someone had taken a photo of me. But then, a soft ding, a notification. My phone screen lit up, and I saw it. A new message from an unknown number. No text, just an image. I tapped it with shaking fingers, and my stomach dropped, because it was another photo of me, taken from inside my bedroom, and in the background, I could see my closet door, slightly open, a shadow just barely visible in the darkness beyond it. And then, my phone buzzed again. Another text, another image. My breath hitched, because this time, the closet door was wide open, and underneath it, a message. "I told you. I know when you're awake." I ran. I don't even remember grabbing my keys, just bolting out of the apartment, sprinting down the stairs, and into the cold night air. I called the police again, told them everything. They searched my place, checked the locks, the windows. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. No proof that anyone had been there at all. But I knew the truth. I felt the truth. Someone had been watching me. Someone had been inside my home. And worst of all, they weren't done. It's been a year. I moved to a new city, new apartment, new locks. I don't tell people where I live. I don't post online. I don't open packages. But tonight, when I got home, there was a red envelope waiting for me, neatly placed on my pillow. No stamp, no address, just my name. And inside, a photo of my new apartment, taken from inside the closet. And underneath it, a message. "You always leave the light on. That's how I know you're still awake." I don't sleep anymore, because I know one day, the envelope won't have a photo. It'll just be him, waiting. I had completely forgotten about the Valentine's Day tradition at my job. Every year, the office participated in an anonymous card exchange, just a harmless little thing where everyone would get a card on their desk, signed only with a question mark. Some people used it as a joke. Others used it as an excuse to confess a crush. I never cared much about it. Until last year, when I got a card I wasn't supposed to receive. It was February 14th, and I had just gotten to work. I set my coffee down, turned on my computer, and that's when I noticed it. A red envelope, sitting neatly on my desk. I almost didn't open it. I figured it was just part of the office game. Another harmless note from some coworker trying to be funny. But when I peeled it open, my stomach twisted, because inside was a photo of me, taken from inside my apartment. At night, I felt my whole body go cold. I turned the photo over, half expecting some kind of explanation. Instead, written in small, careful handwriting, "You looked so peaceful last night." My breath hitched. I hadn't told anyone where I lived. No one from work had ever been to my place. And yet, someone had been inside. Someone had been watching me. While I slept, I forced myself to stay calm. I checked my phone. No messages. No missed calls. I glanced around the office, searching for anyone watching me, waiting for my reaction. But no one was looking. No one seemed to notice. It was like the card had just appeared, waiting for me. The rest of the day was a blur. I could barely focus. All I could think about was the photo, the angle. It had been taken from my closet. I tried to push the thought away, tried to tell myself it was a prank. But deep down, I knew this wasn't a joke. And whoever had left the card, they weren't done. That night, I locked every door, closed every curtain, checked every closet. Still, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made my skin crawl. The pipes creaking, the wind against the window, the faint hum of the refrigerator. I laid awake, staring at the ceiling, listening, waiting. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. A new text from an unknown number. No message, just a photo. I hesitated before opening it, my hands trembling, and when I saw what it was, I felt my entire body lock up. It was a photo of me, taken just seconds ago, from outside my bedroom window, and underneath it, a single message. Why didn't you open the door? My breath came in short, sharp gasps. I hadn't heard anything. No knocks, no footsteps, but someone had been there, just outside, watching, waiting, and I hadn't even known. I called the police, told them everything. They checked the apartment. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footprints outside the window. Like whoever had been there had never really been there at all. They told me to be careful, to call if I noticed anything else. But we all knew the truth. There was nothing they could do. And worst of all, I knew this wasn't over. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I packed a bag, booked a flight. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just left, because I knew, if I stayed, if I waited, I would get another card. And next time, there wouldn't be a photo. There would just be him, waiting. That was a year ago. I moved to a new city, new apartment, new job. I don't celebrate Valentine's Day. I don't tell people where I live. But tonight, when I got home, there was a red envelope waiting for me, sitting on my kitchen counter. Even though I locked the door, even though I live alone, I don't want to open it, but I already know what it will say. Because this time, I heard the knock, and he knows I'm awake. I never used to think much about Valentine's Day. It was just another holiday, another excuse for stores to sell overpriced chocolates and flowers. I had no plans, no date, just a quiet night at home, eating takeout and watching bad TV. That's what I told myself. That's what I thought would happen. Until the roses arrived. It started around 7 p.m. I was just settling in, scrolling through my phone, when the doorbell rang. I hesitated. I wasn't expecting anyone. Slowly, I got up and peeked through the peephole. Nobody was there. Just a single box sitting on the doormat, wrapped in black paper, a red ribbon tied neatly around it. I stared at it, my stomach twisting. Something about it felt wrong, like it wasn't really meant to be a gift, like it was a warning. I stepped outside, grabbed the box, and took it inside. My hands shook as I untied the ribbon, peeled back the paper, and inside was a bouquet of roses, deep red, beautiful. But as I reached for them, my breath hitched, because the stems weren't just covered in thorns. They were covered in something else, something dark, something wet, something that looked an awful lot like blood. And tucked between the petals was a small note, written in perfect, careful handwriting. For my one and only. I dropped the box. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. I checked my phone. No messages. No missed calls. I checked the locks, the windows. Everything was secure. But someone had still been here. Someone had left me this. And whoever they were, they thought I belonged to them. The second gift arrived an hour later. This time, I heard it. A soft thump against the door. My whole body locked up. I crept toward the peephole, my pulse hammering. Still, no one there. I opened the door. And there, on the doormat, was a small jewelry box, wrapped in red velvet. I already knew I shouldn't open it, but I did. Inside was a ring, thin, delicate, and attached to it was a human tooth. My stomach lurched, and underneath the ring, tucked neatly inside the box, was another note. Be mine. I don't remember running, just grabbing my keys, sprinting out of the apartment and into my car. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. But as I reached the first stoplight, my phone buzzed. A new message. No name, no caller ID, just a single image. I hesitated before opening it, my hands trembling, and when I saw what it was, I nearly crashed the car. It was a photo of me, taken just seconds ago, from right outside my window, and underneath it, a message. You forgot your flowers. I didn't go home that night. I drove to a motel, paid in cash, and locked myself inside. I kept the lights on, kept the curtains closed, but I couldn't stop shaking, because I knew, whoever had sent me those gifts, they weren't done. The next morning, I called the police, told them everything. They searched my apartment, checked the security cameras. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footage of anyone leaving the gifts. Like they had just appeared. Like whoever left them had never really been there at all. The officers asked me if I had any exes. Anyone who might want to scare me. But I didn't. I hadn't dated in over a year. I lived alone. No one had any reason to do this. But someone still had. And worst of all, they knew exactly where to find me. It's been a year. I moved to a new city. New apartment. New job. I don't celebrate Valentine's Day. I don't answer the door after dark. But tonight, when I got home, there was a black box waiting for me, sitting on my kitchen table. Even though I locked the door, even though I live alone, my hands shook as I unwrapped it. Inside was a single red rose. Fresh. Perfect. Except for the blood stains on the petals. And underneath it, a message. You said yes. I don't sleep anymore. Because I know one day, I'll wake up, and he'll be there, waiting.